I'm gonna be the king of the
live action anime adaptations. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idol, and that's right, One Piece has hit the streaming airwaves, and as such, I've seen it 1.5 times now. I think that it's time for us to go ahead and set sail for the Grand Line and see if Netflix gave us the ultimate treasure in this spoiler-free review.
Come aboard and bring along all your hopes and dreams.
I guess before I talk about the show itself, I should give you guys a brief summary of your boy's history with this franchise, and I'll definitely keep it brief because, yeah, I've been there since the stateside beginning. You know, with the manga releasing in Japan in '97, it didn't make its way to the Freedom Land until 2002 in the monthly Shonen Jump magazine, a magazine to which I was happily subscribed, and I would read every month alongside things like Dragon Ball Z and Rurouni Kenshin. But it was 2002, and as much as I enjoyed One Piece, DBZ had, and frankly still has, my heart above all others. But something else magical besides Shonen Jump happened in 2002. The Fox Box. A Saturday morning cartoon block that would feature some of the greatest cartoons and anime of the early 2000s. TMNT 03, Shaman King, Kirby, and of course, the greatest of them all, Sonic X. Then, by 2004, 2 years after I'd started reading the manga, it happened. The anime debut of One Piece. The 4Kids dub.
Yo! Don't give it up, Luffy!
Yeah, people make fun of 4Kids now, but they were some of the pioneers of anime making its way to the West alongside Toonami and the Sci-Fi Channel, and this was how I first experienced the anime. For a little over a year until this version was canceled. And all the funny music, voice acting, and of course censorship aside, everyone knew One Piece was something special. And 4Kids really does deserve more credit. I mean, you wouldn't even have your Crunchyrolls today, or your Hot Topic selling low-quality anime merch at a 500% markup, if not for the 4Kids era. So yeah, put some respect on the 4Kids name. Anyway, as I mentioned before, the show was canceled, and as such, I sort of just fell off for One Piece. Around the same time of the cancellation, I also didn't have the money to subscribe to Shonen Jump anymore, so, much like every other pirate in the series, One Piece, completely out of my grasp. It did get picked up by Cartoon Network a couple years later, or maybe even just a year later, but at that point, I was all about Naruto. I didn't have time for that silly pirate cartoon. Ninjas were all the rage, baby! And I got back into One Piece when it came back uncensored for Adult Swim in 2013, and I stayed pretty consistent with it ever since. I even switched to watching it subbed so I could stay on top of the show. As of right now, I've kind of fallen behind on the anime. I'm only about 960 episodes in out of the 1,070 plus that the show has currently aired, but I'm going to pick it back up again soon because my interest has been renewed, all because of this adaptation. That's right, now for Luffy's favorite part of the review, the meat. This show is 8 episodes at about 1 hour each, covering the first arc and 5, sub-arcs as I'll call them. The Shell Island arc, Buggy the Clown arc, Captain Kuro arc, the Baratier arc, and lastly the Arlong Park arc. It's something that took about 60 episodes of the anime, which is about 25 hours of screen time. So, how do they think they're gonna do shaving it down to just 8 hours? Well, they do a fantastic job. I mean, look, we've all seen live-action anime adaptations, alright? Like, let's not pretend we haven't. And it's no Super Saiyan secret that nearly all of them are bigger pieces of garbage than Leah Thompson. Except for you, live-action Rurouni Kenshin, you are perfect and can do no wrong. Look, guys, I'm so happy to say this show bucks that awful trend. I mean, yeah, there's a couple misfires in there, which I'll get into in a bit, but as it currently stands, I genuinely believe this show was the Gold Roger standard for how we should be doing live-action anime adaptations going forward. The runtime to story quantity ratio is just about perfect. The pacing is spot on, except when it isn't, but like I said, we'll get to that in a sec. The casting, my god, were my fears laid to rest almost immediately upon watching. The music mostly works, minus one weird segment in Arlong Park, which, again, we'll get to that in a second. And most important of all, the source material is respected to the highest degree, and there is not a hint of modern American ideological, social, or political stuff in sight. Seriously, at this point, I'd go so far as to say that the live-action Cowboy Bebop actually has its existence justified now, if that's what it took for the higher-up idiots at Netflix to realize this is how adaptations need to be done. So good job, CB, your death wasn't in vain after all. Like most TV shows and movies I view, I watched this with a friend who knew next to nothing about the source material outside of watching it way back in the Foxbox days 20 years ago. And he never really hated the show, but was never a fan of it either. Barely watched it back in the day, so was completely indifferent to the franchise in 2023. But when I tell you he was glued to this live-action show, I mean glued. We watched all 8 episodes in one sitting, and he was so impressed, he asked to watch more, leading me to turn on one of the anime movies. Which brings me to the question, and hopefully the answer: will this be able to attract normies that are not familiar with the source material? Well, mostly I think so, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is still a wacky, out there adventure comedy series about teenage pirates. There's gonna be a bit of a level of barrier to entry regardless of whether it's an adaptation of something or not. But if the general viewer has any idea of what they're getting into before they get into it, I think they'll really enjoy it. Maybe not necessarily be able to appreciate how well it's done as an adaptation, but still enjoy it. For the most part, like I said, there are some negatives, but not near as many as you'd think. The main issues come with the pacing in the 3rd and 4th episodes. They try to show off some character backstories that just don't fit the mood and break off from the main story too much. Not only that, but because these backstories don't last very long, whereas sometimes they take up full episodes or more in the original anime, these just don't emotionally resonate as well as it does in its hand-drawn counterpart. And since this happened so early in the show, episodes 3 and 4, I can understand people starting to get worried or worse, bored with the series. But if you can power through these episodes, 5 through 8 get right back on track with proper storytelling and pacing. So one problem a lot of anime adaptations run into, and really not just anime adaptations, but live-action adaptations of anything animated, we've seen this, with like the Disney live-action adaptations, is choreography. Let's face it, that's the best thing about animation, is you can pull off these larger-than-life, grandiose, over-the-top movements and set pieces with zero limitations, because it's all fake. It's just drawings. And while One Piece does very occasionally have moments where the choreography doesn't work, I'd say that 9 out of 10 times, it's stellar. It's not the most complicated, but it's fast-paced enough, flashy enough, zany enough, and all while still being realistic enough to believe. Minimal CGI is also a plus, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. All in all, the show's choreography is everything Ahsoka isn't. My boy Atreus won't be able to call this lethargic in any way. The score is also sublime, including Easter eggs for fans of the anime, except for one scene in Episode 7. While the majority of the score are these epic woodwind and string instrument orchestras or fittingly pirate-sounding Spanish guitar, one particular scene has this weird dubstep rock music that just completely threw the vibe off for a second. Thankfully it doesn't last long, but it was enough for me to remember it and how just disorienting it was, so it's probably worth mentioning for you audiophiles out there. And to get to the last problem, that really I see as a major win when we break it down, it's the CGI is a bit lackluster at times. Now, to be fair, I went in expecting this, not just because it's an anime adaptation, but because, well, CGI for TV shows almost always sucks, especially in modern-day streaming shows. But hey, even the worst CGI in the show, which, again, to be fair, there isn't that much of, is still leaps and bounds better than this. Seriously, a solid 70% of the time the CGI works for me, and even if it doesn't, this show is so undoubtedly above anything coming from Disney Plus for one simple reason: real, practical sets. I felt like I was baptized in the waters of the East Blue watching this because my prayers for practical sets had been answered. Almost everything in the show is physically there and on camera. It has weight. You could actually see yourself in these locations. They look tangible. Now, whether it's a giant mansion or a floating 5-star restaurant on the seas or a broken and decrepit village in the woods, these locations feel accessible. Without a doubt, the set design is the second best part of the show. Yes, second best. And you might be asking yourselves, Leon, you hate everything. You almost sound like you like this show, but we've all seen your Ahsoka reviews and your Resident Evil 4 remake review. What gives? We crave your wisdom, we crave your knowledge, and we crave to know what product you put in your hair. First of all, Tresemme shampoo, blow dry your hair, straighten, only do this every 3 to 4 days, and second of all, Inaki Godoy. Admittedly, I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right, but this kid is flat out perfect. Now, don't get me wrong. I got nice things to say about almost every person cast in the show, except the child actors portraying young Nami, young Luffy, so on and so forth. They were awful, but that's almost always par for the course for child actors, so it is what it is. Now, back to Inaki, this kid's heart and spirit shine for this character. You can feel every ounce of love coming off the script in Inaki's portrayal of Luffy. Some people might find his acting off-putting. Those people clearly aren't familiar with the source material because he just nails it. His favorite restaurant must be Denny's because this was a grand slam. I mean, really nearly every character is well done. Nami, Zoro, Garp, Kobe, even side characters we don't see much of like Yasop, all do their characters justice. But Inaki Godoy as Luffy just elevates this entire show to levels that I wouldn't have considered possible until actually seeing the show. When Ichiro Oda said that this kid was born to play Luffy, well, I'll never argue with Oda-san again. The man's a genius. At the end of the day, there are going to be some changes that the purists may not like. Some characters are introduced a little bit earlier than normal, some big character reveals happen way earlier than in the source material, and some characters, looking at you, Usopp, don't quite get enough time to shine compared to their anime counterparts. And this, well, like I said, will probably upset the purists. But I didn't actually mind these few changes. Well, again, except for Usopp. Like what is it, Netflix? Is it because he's black? Like, is that what it is? Put some respect on my man. One Piece has meant many things to many people all over the world since its debut in 1997. Hell, it's the only anime or manga in existence to rival Dragon Ball for the #1 spot in terms of sales and popularity. Though if recent numbers would be trusted, One Piece is behind in the #2 spot by about $10 billion. Just throwing that out there, Dragon Ball supremacy. I was more than skeptical when this was announced way back in 2017. With things like Death Note, Ghost in the Shell, and of course Dragon Ball Evolution, who wouldn't have been? And then all hope was lost at sea when Cowboy Bebop aired, leaving me and probably every one of you guys watching this dreading just the thought of One Piece, let alone its actual existence. But here I stand proudly to say, I, Leon Idol, was wrong. The show is great. I loved every moment of my time with it, and I'm gonna be rewatching it again. And if you haven't seen it yet and you were just waiting for my wise words to penetrate your thick skulls, then here they are. I think you should watch it too. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on Twitter. Sorry, X, where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Normally 2 videos a day, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be doing 2 videos today or not. I really want people to see this review and respond to it. So once again, please do like, share, subscribe, the whole 9. And then I will probably be doing individual in-depth episode reviews if that's something you guys want to see. Going in-depth and spoiler with each episode individually. Let me know if you'd be interested in that as well. I mean, I'm probably going to do it regardless, but could be fun to break down every single of the 8 episodes in this One Piece series. But until then, it's all here in the Nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.